love it when the horns come in. I really do. I love it when the horns come in. Good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're on the lifeboat. And it's Thursday. We have almost made it to the weekend. The weekend means a whole lot around here, but we've almost made it to the weekend. So this one may have been better suited for a night video than a morning video. But so often what I do here is based on emails that I get from people. And in recovery, I think everybody's fondest wish would be that all anyone would have to do is wave a wand and certain aspects of sobriety would just be covered. And the most important of those would be the ability to forgive oneself. And like so many other things in sobriety, we walk a really fine line when we talk about forgiveness for ourselves, especially. And the reason is this, because if you really want to be honest, we're not responsible for a lot of the things that we do when we're in the life. You can be found not guilty by reason of insanity, right? You can go to court and they can say this person truthfully didn't know what they were doing. They didn't realize right from wrong because they had a mental illness. Well, the mental illness of drug addiction, while we absolutely know what we're doing is wrong, very often we're unable to control that. If you people could see a video of the first 46 years of my life, it wouldn't say 15 people were watching this right now. It would say 0, because the person I was not worth respect of any kind. I'm not putting on a hell of a show now. I've got the disease of addiction under control, and because of that, I'm a completely different person. I am, as far away from East is from West, from the individual that I was 46 years ago. Or I'm sorry, even 8 years ago. And that's a fine line, because you can't not take responsibility for the things that you do. So how the hell do you take responsibility for the things that you do, yet forgive yourself for those things? So it really comes down to two completely separate mindsets. And sadly, we have a difficult time doing this. So it's almost worth meditating or journaling or doing any of the things that you do to really bring something into focus. Because let's say your substance of choice is alcohol. We know that when you start to consume that beverage, that there are effects that happen on the brain, and they happen in a very predictable fashion, right? And the first thing is slightly lowered inhibitions. You're a little bit more social. You're not nearly as worried about somebody looking at you like maybe you're acting like an idiot. But by the end of the night, you're in your boxer shorts with a lampshade on your head, and you're doing things that the following day you don't even remember doing. To try and take responsibility for that is absolutely essential. I made a really bad decision. I did really stupid things. But taking responsibility for that is something that we do with others in a different way than we do with ourselves. The key to this entire process is coming to the realization that addiction is a disease. And there are symptoms that are absolutely clear and definable. They have a surefire, no BS test that they can do. They can look at the brain using advanced brain scanning technology, right? And they can look at the brain of a person who's an addict, and they can look at a brain of a person who's not, and see that there's different things going on. One part of the brain is firing considerably more, and one part is basically not firing at all. And I don't mean while you're under the influence. I mean all of the time. So if you're one of those people who struggle with the fact that that addiction is a disease, then this is going to be a very difficult process. But it is a disease. When the lifeboat first started, some of the first people to really take issue with the things that I do here on the boat took issue because of that phrase. Addiction is a disease. Because they said, no, cancer is a disease. Addiction is just stupidity, And if you want to beat the piss out of yourself for the rest of your life, go ahead and do that. But you may as well buy a bottle, because you're not going to be able to walk that tightrope where you're able to live a sober and a happy existence. So the way that I take responsibility for the things that I do, I stole from my family. I did it. That's me. I own that. And I'll tell you something else. I have been sober 8 years. 8 years in June. And if there are 30 people in a room and a diamond comes up missing, or $400 that was left on the counter is gone, I'm going to be the suspect. I've been to prison, right? 3 times. And every time it was for stealing. If $400 comes up missing, who do you think they're going to look at? That's something that I have to live with for the rest of my life. And I live with it without it bothering me. I own that. I really do. I own that. I get pulled over by a police officer. I told this story on the boat many times. But I got pulled over by a police officer who said to me, I pulled you over because you didn't use your right turn signal. Which, by the way, was an absolute lie, because I saw a police officer in my rearview mirror, and I assure you, every single thing that I needed to do correctly, I was doing correctly. I was driving an AMG Mercedes, and he ran the license plate because it was in a part of town that he shouldn't have been in, and I was still using. At this point, I wasn't living a good life, but so the lights light up, and I get pulled over on the side of the road, and he comes walking over. Do you know why I pulled you over? I said, no, can't imagine. He said, because you didn't use your right turn signal. And I said, are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure that I used my right turn signal. And he said, no, you really didn't. I said, well, you're the boss, or something along those lines. And boss is a term that convicts use when in prison to refer to anybody that wears a uniform. You just call him boss. And immediately, without missing a beat, he said, where did you do your time? And turns out that he already knew where I did my time. He already knew my name. He already knew everything. But I said to him, I did time in the federal system. And he said, what did you do time for? And I said, bank robbery. And I'm not kidding you people, that fast. There was a gun. I'm talking about 4 inches from my face. His finger was inside the trigger guard on the trigger. And I struggled mightily with that. But I struggled mightily with that because I was still in the life. When I look back on it now, this is something that I brought on myself. I have to own every single part of that. And if I don't, I promise you I'll relapse. Owning my past is something that keeps me sober, because it can get real easy to read 300 comments about, you're such a good person and you're helping so many people and aren't you fantastic? And you know what? I'm doing all right. I'm not a fantastic person, but I'm trying every single day. But you can start to believe that, you know what? I'm such a different person that person didn't exist. Like none of that ever happened. You could really start to blend the border, to color outside the lines. So on a regular basis, if something comes up or if people ask, I was at the watch show and it happened again this past weekend where somebody said something about, drug addicts. I'm never going to let somebody say something about drug addicts that I don't go, oh, I'm one. I'm not. And I don't care if family's there. I don't care. This is who I am. And the reason that I own my past the way that I do is because it's how I forgive myself. May not make any sense, but follow me on this. If you don't own your past, if you don't say the things that I did because I was using, then how do you forgive yourself? If you don't own every single thing that you've done and realize that drugs can turn you into somebody that you're not, then self-forgiveness becomes very difficult. The reason that I'm allowed, the reason that I'm able to forgive myself for, good Lord, a lot of bank robberies and untold lies. People, if I had $1 for every lie I've told, I would be filthy rich. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I would be filthy rich. I lied a couple of hundred times a day for decades. Taking responsibility for that lays out an entire framework for every single thing that I am today. The owning my past and saying, my God, I literally got to a point where I could walk up, grab the front door of a bank, give it a big exhale, and walk in and go tell the teller I want them to take all 3 drawers and put all of the cash up on the counter. Please keep your hands where I can see them. Doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense because drugs can make you do things that don't make any sense. When you are deep in addiction, drugs are at the wheel. You're not in any control over your life. None. You're not in control. Drugs, alcohol, even, I'll tell you something else, gambling, sex addiction, whatever the addiction is. Light switch, right? The light switch gets thrown and a bunch of chemicals get released in your brain. I don't care what's throwing the switch. That's why it's called the lifeboat. Because it doesn't matter what the hell you're using to get that switch thrown. We're all in the same boat. If you sit down and you have a conversation with somebody who's a gambling addict, they will describe to you the exact same lifestyle as a heroin addict. The only difference is, while we're sticking a needle in our arm, they're sitting in front of a machine or they're sitting at a table and they're laying money down. But it's the same buzz. And the actions that they do make no sense. None. So let me get this straight. You got a paycheck for $3,000. You went into a casino and in 15 minutes you had $9,000. Just killing it. And then you gave the entire $9,000 away. Walked out without a penny in your pocket and then went and stole from your family. Sound familiar? Because a heroin addict will take a $3,000 paycheck and stick it in their arm. The disease of addiction has symptoms that look really similar regardless of what the mechanism of that addiction is. If you do not have a handle on the fact that you're not in control, how are you going to beat the piss out of yourself if you were not in control of the things that you did? Now, we talk about us and them, and it's a terrible thing to say, but there's no other way to say it, right? There's a reason that we all come here, and it's because we understand one another. We understand what it means to be a drug addict, while other people on this planet don't have a clue. They can read a book about it. They can watch movies about it. You know, they can watch the Ray Charles story 3 times and think, I know what it's like to be a heroin addict. All right, I watched Jamie Foxx do that. But they don't know what it feels like to be so uncomfortable in your own skin that you'll do anything to make that stop. We all understand that, right? So this is one of those situations that if you can get a handle, if you can really get your mind wrapped around the fact that the things that you did when you were under the influence, you did because you were under the influence. We have to take responsibility because it is a disease of choice. You do have a choice to stop. But very often it takes intervention from a really great human being or many great human beings, God, whatever your belief is, that got you from being a degenerate. You know, and every person has to evaluate where they were. You know, maybe you went to work 7 days a week, right? You worked your butt off. You did everything right. You raised your kids, but you just got loaded every single night from 6 to 9 and then passed out. You're still a drug addict. You still have to come to grips with the fact that you wasted 3 hours of your life every single night, that you destroyed your health. Not everybody ends up in a bank with a gun, right? I didn't actually use a gun either, but not everybody ends up in a bank robbing it. Not everybody ends up selling their body or whatever it is that you did. But whatever it is that you did, know that you weren't at the helm. Now, anybody that just wanders into this channel that's never done drugs is going to hate me for saying that. Believe it. See, the us versus them thing, the normies, the people who aren't drug addicts, they want us to feel guilty. Sadly, that's a fact. They may not even realize that they want that. But if you've ever seen somebody really push back on the disease concept, they don't like the disease model because it's like, wow, so he gets off the hook? He doesn't have to take any responsibility? Oh, yeah, I do. And if you don't think I've taken responsibility, let's just start with the fact that if I lived to be 100, I spent 10% of my life incarcerated. A little bit more than 10% of my life incarcerated. But I was told there would be no math. My debt to society was paid, right? No. My debt to the legal system was paid. But then when I get out, society goes, you're a convict. You can't get this job. You can't live here. You can't work with kids. You can't do this, right? You realize I can't volunteer anywhere? For real. You want to volunteer, like, I have become a very different person. But if I want to go in and work with kids about drugs, I got to do it from a stage and be nowhere near them. Because once you're a convict, they assume that every law you would break, right? Can't have them around a kid. I have to own that. I'm never going to own a gun in my life. It's not something I can do. I got to own that. I mean, I could get pissed at the system and I could rail at it, but I did it. But I did it because I was a drug addict. I didn't rob banks because I wanted to get rich. I robbed banks because if I didn't put that crap in my veins, I was going to feel like I was going to die. And I had no clue that it was possible to feel the way that I do today without drugs. I literally got to a point where I didn't believe that it was possible to get happiness any other way than by the gram. So, does that make me a dirtbag? There's a lot of people on this planet that think it does. The reason that group therapy is beautiful is because I'm not a dirtbag. Because I did those things. If I choose to do horrendous things today, if I choose to cheat people, and if I choose to be a scumbag, and heroin's not at the helm, then I'm a crap human being. But it has been my experience that it is really, really rare that once you remove the substance, that the person is still less than a good person. It has been my experience that once that mechanism that throws the switch, whether you put it in your nose, your vein, you drop your money on a table, whatever it is that got those chemicals flowing in your brain, when we remove that person becomes a completely different animal. And I mean a completely different animal. And I've seen that so many times that it hurts me, literally. It hurts me when I watch someone that can't forgive themselves. How the hell can you not forgive yourself for something that cocaine did? You made the choice to do blow, and you did it a couple of too many times, and then you were addicted. But when you came out of the womb, you were a cocaine addict, or maybe a heroin addict, or maybe you find your substance of choice. My brother said once, and I thought it was genius, that the very first time he ever got high, he became an addict the first time he got high, but that wasn't the substance. He was seeking the substance that was going to fix him. Like, he smoked a joint, and and everybody's got a different story. Like, you drink a few beers and all of a sudden your inhibitions lower a little bit and you kind of feel comfortable in your own skin, but you don't like that feeling of being slightly out of control. So what do? Well, you seek a new substance, right? And then you find crystal, and it does this, it lowers the inhibitions. You get a little bit more energy. You feel like you can talk to anybody, but damn it, you can't sleep. So you keep looking. And then somebody gives you something that you take, and everything seems perfect. I feel comfortable in my own skin. My inhibitions are lowered. I'm not in any pain. And come 10 o'clock at night, I lay down, and I am asleep. And I am asleep like I have never been asleep. And I think, this is it. I found something that will make me normal. I found something that will make me like everybody else on this planet. There's the choice. Okay, yeah, maybe I got to pay for it, but all of a sudden I won't be broken. I will be like other people. And I start doing opiates, massive amounts of them, because the tolerance level builds up really quick. And then the next thing you know, this perfect thing that you found is costing you $700 a day. And I was blessed. I worked as a public speaker, and the amount of money that I made was obscene. It really was. It was obscene. There were years I made $800,000. But if I made 800 grand, I would spend 900 grand because that's the drug. And it turned me into something that I was never intended to be. And for a very long time, I struggled with the fact that, okay, I'm sober, but man, I'm just not a good human being. You know? Look at the things that I did. And all of a sudden, you get sober and you get clarity. Right? All of a sudden, that stuff's not there to go, don't worry about it, you're cool. It's not your fault, you're cool. With that gone, the guilt becomes overwhelming, the guilt drives you back to using, and that cycle lasted probably 8 or 9 years of me really wanting to be done. I mean, I wanted to be done every day for the entire time. But for the last 9 years, I was going through it. I hated me, unless I was under the influence. So if you think about it, what really happens is you go from being uncomfortable in your own skin at a level of 6 to where when you're not high, you're uncomfortable in your own skin to a level of 40. You understand how insidious this is? Please tell me, throw a 1 in the comment section if you understand how insidious that is. That you start out feeling like you're uncomfortable in your own skin. On a scale of 1 to 10, you're uncomfortable in your own skin at a 3. So you find something that makes you comfortable. But soon, when you're not on that stuff, you're not a 3, you're an 8. Okay, if you put a 1 in the comments section and you understand how insidious that is, then how are you blaming yourself for the things that you did when you were under the influence? And I don't mean wasted. I mean wasted or sober. When this stuff had you, and when you weren't wasted, you were so uncomfortable that you were at an 8 or a 9 without your substance, then how is it you can't forgive yourself for that period of time? I get more emails from people that say, I simply can't forgive myself. Why the hell not? You could forgive yourself when you were on that crap, but you can't forgive yourself knowing that the only way you can forgive yourself was for being on that crap? It will make you do things that nobody would ever do. I want to tell you something. Because of what my substance of choice is, my substance of choice was opiates, and primarily the ones you buy on the street, right? The ones that come from a poppy. I probably have known hundreds of prostitutes because most prostitutes are drug addicts, and most of them are on hard drugs. They're selling their body to trade it for a period of time of feeling comfortable in their own skin. They have to raise $200, $300 a day, whatever, and still manage to get a weekly motel room that they're going to live in for decades, right? With not much more than the really filthy clothing that they wear out there to entice people. I can tell you this. None of them came out of the womb thinking, I want to sell myself. You realize how far down the rabbit hole you have to go to say, I will have sex with the next person that drives up, providing they have money. You don't think that's the drug making that friggin' decision? You really think for a second that woman made that choice? That's an extreme example, isn't it? But please tell me you understand she didn't make that choice. Well, then why can't you forgive yourself for lying to people? If you can forgive that woman for selling her soul for drugs, then why can't you understand that the things that you did weren't controlled by you? Seriously, this doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I understand. I understand at an intellectual level, because the world wants us to feel like shit, pardon me. But that's what the world wants, right? We need to pay for our sins, right? We just can't be forgiven. Damn it, you stole things. Damn it, you sold your body. You're a bank robber, man. I just can't forgive you because you say you had a disease. Okay, good. Get out of my life. Get out of my life. And if that person that can't forgive you is family, tolerate them at Thanksgiving. But you don't have to make them your family. You can pick your family. We've proven that. Don't allow people in your life who can't forgive you because they will keep you from forgiving yourself. Use the illustration of the prostitute in your head every time you feel like I literally beat people up for cash. Well, that's a lie. I beat people up for drugs. I was in prison, and coming up with that kind of money is almost impossible. To support a heroin habit in prison is almost impossible. So they looked at me and went, he's 6'2", 240. Send them in to go get money from the people that owe us. So I would go in and terrify people. Terrorize them. I'm going to be back tomorrow to do this to you again. Get your family on the phone and get this guy paid. And then I would walk out of that cell after doing the crappiest thing that anybody on the planet could do. And then I would run down to the guy and go, now give that to me quick. Because I got to forget what I just did. And what was I beating the guy up for? For being me. For being me. But I was blessed to be 6'2" and 240. So in there, that would pay off. I'm not that person. There's no violence in me at all. At all. I'm not a violent person. I never was before I went in. Never been that person. Drugs take the wheel. Now, let's jump back to the other side. Do I take responsibility for what I did to those people? You betcha. You betcha I do. But I'm not going to allow myself to feel guilty for it. I'm not. I have made amends the best I can. I have. And you know what? Every single day that I get up in the morning, and this is key, every day that I get up in the morning, I live my life in such a way that if anybody got to see that video I was talking to you about earlier, and then they got to see the second half of that video, they would go, holy hell, that dude changed. If you're living the same lifestyle without the drugs, you're never going to forgive yourself. You're never going to forgive yourself. And people question me when I say that. I get emails about that. Well, you can't live the same lifestyle. The hell you can't. If you're still lying to people, if you're still doing all of the habits that you did when you were under the influence, then you're never going to forgive yourself. If you're still the same person, you just removed the dope. You have to better yourself. And that's a daily thing. Every day. Right? Every single day, you got to think to yourself, am I sliding back toward the Tommy that robbed banks? Or am I moving forward toward the guy that's trying to help people get sober? And if I'm going that way, then yeah, I'm going to struggle trying to forgive myself. I am. Now, for those of you who believe in a higher power, it's even crazier to me when those people say they can't forgive themselves. Because the vast majority of them are Christians. So you believe in a God, right, that gave his life for forgiveness, but you can't forgive yourself. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It makes sense to me, once again, as an exercise of intellect, all of this makes sense. But being an addict, right, using your heart and your soul. I have said from the very first day that we started this channel that I don't believe addicts are like other people. I really don't. And in many ways, I think we're better. And I know that pisses people off when I say that. But in many ways, we are. You'll never meet a more forgiving person than a drug addict because in their heart and soul, they know what they were. So if they see somebody, I got ripped off by somebody last week. Someone from the boat. I know it's not them. I know it's not them. I know who's at the wheel. Am I happy about it? No. No, that leaves a mark. Makes you feel like a mark. But there is not much that I can't understand in terms of somebody doing something that they don't have control over. I assure you, the person that got me, they didn't want to get me. In fact, they're going to struggle more with getting me than anybody else. And the sad thing is, it's going to keep them from getting the kind of help that they need because, and this is why, when we help people on the boat, you got to be really, really careful. Because if you help somebody that's not ready to be helped, and they get you, right? They grab $300 and they kind of disappear with the money. They're never coming back here for help. They would have to tuck their tail so far between their legs they wouldn't be able to walk. Sadly, I hope some of them hear this, because I don't hold things that people did under the influence against them. I don't hold them against me. How am I going to hold them against others? The reality, people, is that, like almost everything in sobriety, we walk a really fine line all the time. We really do. You have to take responsibility. Not so that, we're accepted by society, but that's huge. It's huge. Because if you don't take responsibility, society is not going to accept you in any way. You have to forgive yourself. You have to. It's absolutely essential. But at the same time, you have to take responsibility. And for me, taking responsibility is why I can forgive myself. You understand? For me, and this was a Q thing that he beat into me viciously. His term was own it. And I used to say it a lot on the boat. If you don't own your past, how do you forgive yourself? Right? It cleans the slate. There's a reason that the two individuals who invented group therapy, straight up, right? They invented sobriety. And I don't, goodness. I don't, I don't subscribe to their particular brand of sobriety. I don't do the 12-step thing. That doesn't mean that I don't realize that they were giants, because they were. They were giants, and we stand on their back. But there's a reason that when they laid out the 12 steps, that one of them was making amends. Let me tell you a huge secret. It's not about the person that you're making amends to. It's about you. Trust me, when they sat down and had that conversation and they were putting together the 12 steps, they didn't think, well, we better make sure that we make this right with everybody, because you're not going to make it right with everybody. I don't know if you people have ever done the amends process, but if you think every person you goes to go, cool, Tommy, really appreciate you. I got more FUs than you could possibly imagine. You know how many people said to me, you got balls calling me to apologize. I can't believe you're calling me to apologize. It's not about them. It's about you. So when I worked with Q and we were putting together what we do here, man, go apologize to somebody other than them. Seriously. Or mail them a letter that just says, hey, sorry. Because getting your teeth kicked in 250 times trying to make amends, it's not a great way to stay sober. It's really not. So just own it. Own it every day. Own who you were. Because owning who you were will make you realize just how far drugs had taken over your life. Yeah, I'm a bank robber. I'm a gun runner. I beat people up for money. But I didn't do that. I didn't do that. That's not who I am. At all. It's not who I am. This is who I am. You're looking at who I am. Do you see the correlation between those two things? It's the fact that I own my past that makes me realize just how far away from Tommy that I got. Owning my past is the key to forgiving myself. Because that ain't me, man. That ain't me. But if you whitewash your past, right? If you go, I don't know why you're making such a big deal about it. Yeah, I mean, I did some stupid stuff, and yeah, there was that one time I crashed the car when the kid was in the back, but the kid didn't get hurt. No, man, screw that. If that's the way that you do this, then you're downplaying the control that the substance had over you. And if you downplay the control that the substance had over you, how are you going to forgive yourself for the things that you did when the substance had the control over you? Please tell me this is making sense. Please tell me this is making sense. Owning your past is the key to your future. Owning your past is how you clean your slate, and it's how you forgive yourself. M. Hunt says, I call it poison. You want to hear something really cool? I have a switch now, right? It's actually a key on a keyboard, but I can turn off. I don't see anything scroll up until I want to. So when I get to the part of this that I'm starting to sort of wind down, I can hit a button and all of a sudden I can see what you guys are saying, which is a really cool setup. And I'm getting a little bit better at getting this thing put together the way that I really want to get it put together. As far as that goes, a couple of other things. First of all, Family Landscape, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that. People, I haven't been answering comments. And after answering no less than 50,000 comments since the boat started, it's so uncomfortable to me to not answer comments. But I sat down. I had this was another wisdom of Q from the outside. I had written to him, and the other night when everything kind of went screwy, I sent him an email, and it took a long time. And he didn't email me; he called me, which was awesome. And I got a chance to talk to him, and he said, "We got 15 minutes. Don't give me any kind of the crap. Just like let's get to the meat of this." And I started talking to him, and I said, and some of it is stress on my end because I'm burning the candle at three ends. With the business and I'm thinking of moving and trying to get the house, ready to sell. And I'm going through all this stuff. And he said to me, of everything you do on the lifeboat, what's the most important? He said, is it the shows? I said, it's probably talking to people who need help, trying to reach out to people that need help once they reach out to me. He said, so how do they reach out to you? I said, emails, texts. He said, okay, well then you absolutely. But I feared the monumental capacity of self under the influence. You know what? That is an illusion. I'm not trying to bust your chops, but it is an illusion that so many addicts go through. You're not yourself. And I'm not going to put you on blast too hard, but since we're in the comment section, I've gotten a little bit of insight into you, my brother. And you're not the same person. You're not. And the drug wants you to believe you're in control at all times. The drug wants you to believe that you are in control. But you're not. The drug is. Now, it's the drug's number one job. And by the drug, I mean, it's a combination. You put the drug into your body. Your brain wants to keep you there. So your brain is going to tell you any line of crap it possibly can. We're not that hooked on this. You're completely in control. This isn't changing you. It changes other people. Trust me, you are not in control of yourself, and you are not yourself when you're using. You're not. It's just not. Well, and if you are, you would be the first. So I said text messages and emails is primarily the way that people reach out to me. And we went through the list of all of the things that I do here. And I started to talk about comments, and I said, I'm not going to debate what's good for anyone else, but I know what's right for me. Yeah, well, you know what? Debating what's good for anyone else is never a good idea anyway. If you find something that's working for you, that's really all that matters, isn't it? And if you feel, if you find something that works for you, fantastic, right? That's really, every single person in recovery needs to find a path to where they're going to get to. It's the bottom line. And I did a show once on trading one drug for another, and it's probably a year old, maybe more than that. And here's where I stand on this just real quickly. If you drink 2/5 of bourbon a day, and you swap over to smoking a few joints, if there's somebody that thinks that that's really awful and wrong, I don't really see where they're coming from. If smoking that weed turns you into the person that you were when you were drinking, then maybe you have an issue. But I have never seen, that phenomenon. Does that mean that I recommend to people that they go and grab another drug? I don't, as a rule of thumb, but I don't see how anybody can think it's a bad thing. If somebody, you're doing 4 8 balls of blow a day and you trade it out for a joint, you're going to say to somebody, get off that joint? You know what? I got enough weeds in my backyard. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need to be trimming up anybody else's. But so after a very long conversation with Q, he said to me, "How many do you think, in terms of comments, that you've answered?" So I went back, took some numbers, right, and started to run some numbers. And I said, "I don't know, 40, 50,000." And he was like, "How much time does that take?" Because I'm getting to the point, because of the growth of the boat and the fact that I do 2 of these shows a day, and with show prep and things like that, that something had to get trimmed. And of all of the things that I'm trimming, or that I would need to trim, not answering somebody's emails could get somebody killed. Literally, I'm not trying to make what I do bigger than anything else, but a legal CBD pen took me off of my drinking routine. Well, then I would say that that's a really good thing, right? Here's another thing that I maybe don't say very often here, but I'm not anti-drug. You know, I'm not anti-drug. I'm anti-addiction. You know, and if what you trade one substance for another for begins to own you, well, then we have an issue, and then we'll have to address that issue too. But I don't see it as a I've said many times, I have friends that use a ton of different substances. I have a friend, I talked about this a lot. I have a friend that I have known for close to 30 years, and he has not missed a New Year's in 30 years that he doesn't buy 7 grams of blow. Gets a quarter ounce. And he and about 3 friends get together and they snort until the sun comes up. And then he just puts it away. God bless him. I can't do that. I'm not capable of that. If I did that with him, and he invites me to New Year's literally every year. And I always say the same thing. I'm like, "Look, dude, if I go to your New Year's party and I do coke, I'm going to do it on the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th and the 6th, because that's who I am." I love him. I got nothing against him. And there is a part of me that will always wish that that's the way I was born. But I wasn't. And it's if a diabetic came over to my house, I wouldn't say, "I'm serving chocolate cake and we're doing coffee with 4 spoonfuls of sugar. You want some?" I can't do that, right? That person doesn't process sugar the way that they're supposed to, because that's how they were born. So I sure as hell wouldn't try to shove it on them. Well, I don't process drugs the way other people do. You see, when I do drugs of any kind, all of a sudden I get this false sense that I'm somebody other than who I am, and that person is better. And that's what led me to 3 prison sentences, and I never was homeless, right? Because I always had the ability to speak, and there was always somebody out there that was willing to hire me, right? Because probably no one wants to get up on stage and speak. So I could always make a ton of money doing what I do. Did I just see Ladybug? Or did I not? No, maybe I didn't. Okay, sorry. So I was always blessed that I could make a lot of money really quickly by getting up on stage and talking. So I was never homeless, but I didn't own a home, right? And, these days, I own a home. I got a couple of cars. The ability to put substances in my rearview mirror has offered me a life for the first time in my life. For the first time in my life, I have been able to, and something, people? It didn't take long. It really didn't. When I put the stuff in my rearview mirrors, then I was instantly able to start moving forward at a really quick fashion. The other day, this isn't a brag, it's just a shock. The other day, I got an alert from my bank to tell me what my credit score was. And I almost had a heart attack. I really did. Nothing has floored me more since getting sober than realizing where my credit score was. Because my credit score was in the 400s my entire life. I mean, even if I made 800 grand a year, my credit score was in the 400s because I wasn't responsible enough to pay a bill. I could have money in the bank and still not pay my bills because I was getting in the way of driving around to go, find somebody that had dope. So yeah, I didn't squirrel off too far, did I? Here's how I want to end this. First, I want to finish my thought with Q. About once a week, I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the comments, and I'm going to, if something jumps out of me that full of hope. Thank you. I think I like to prefer the second part of it. I promise you I'm sober every morning, but I know what you're saying. I am, here's what's happening, people. I'm getting back to doing what I do. Having a conversation with people while trying to speak was a mistake. And it was a mistake that hurt the boat. And it happened on my end. It was nothing to do with you guys. But as a public speaker, there's a message I want to get across, and I don't get it across. I very, very rarely get it across. M. Hunt, that was 20 years ago. You know what I could be making doing that now? I'm not allowed to work as a public speaker these days because I would have to go from city to city. I'd have to be in a different place every single week. When I am off probation, which is coming up really soon, I probably will do a 6-month speaking gig for some people that I used to work for. I will still continue to do the boat because it won't be a problem. Honestly, it won't. Public speaking takes up 2 hours a day. But I will probably do a 6-month tour to pay off every bill that I could ever have, including my house, and then just sort of... but you live on the road, you're always in hotels. It's not a great lifestyle, you know? People who think, like I look at rock stars. I did that. I just wasn't famous. But I did the exact same lifestyle where I used to roll over, pick up the phone, and call the front desk and say, this is going to sound stupid. What state and city am I in? Because they would just book you. And I had handlers, that I worked for. So the people that I worked for had people who worked for them, that they had employees whose job it was just to get me to the airport and then get me to the speaking arrangement. But yeah, I'm not allowed to do what I used to do. It's just not something that I'm allowed to do. But getting back to being, I want to put out a product that if somebody shows up at the boat that's never been here, they see a presentation that has some continuity in it. Did you like the life, M. Hunt? Be honest. Did you dig it? I hated it. I really did. I probably liked it for the first year or two. I was really young when I started doing it, and it was cool, and I got to see a bunch of America, and that was fun, and we spoke in Hawaii and some other places, so I got to go to some nice locations, but I never saw anything but convention rooms. You know what I mean? It wasn't like people would say, oh, man, you went there? And I'd go, yeah, I ate at a restaurant one night. The rest of the time I was in a hotel. I never really even got to leave the hotels. I guess as a... as a musician, you at least got to leave the hotel and go to a venue. The hotel was my venue. You made almost no money. Well, again, I'm not trying to, I don't want to make you stumble anymore either, but when I first started, it was $30,000 a month plus commission. And if you think that those numbers are enough to make you sick, how do you think I feel? If you took the years that I was on stage, and if I had just saved 10% of what I had made, I would have been retired years ago. And there were speakers I worked with who did that. They literally saved X amount of dollars, and every one of them is retired, and they all live really, really. Oh well, I didn't get any beautiful. When I was done speaking, we had a routine where one of the people that worked there would come up and go, we need you really quickly. And then I would run and get in the elevator and go straight upstairs. And about halfway through my speaking career, we learned that if you were speaking at the Marriott, we'd get a hotel room at the Hilton. And that way there was no way you would accidentally run into somebody you just did the show with. Like, we avoided the audience because we just took their money, right? The people that came to see you were coming to get entertained. The people that came to see me, for the most part, were getting robbed. And I'm not saying that everything I sold was a scam, because it wasn't. But the vast majority of people were still going to fail, because the vast majority of people who do anything fail. So we were just taking $500 off of every single person in the room and then running as fast as we could. Cash extractors. Oh, I know that that's the truth, M. Hunt. I know that that is the truth. Yeah, no, that women were never a part of my public speaking thing. I'll tell you one quick story before I leave. Once as a public speaker. Yeah, well, if you've seen him play that guitar, I mean, that bass, I could see that. Once, and Mahan, you'll get a kick out of this. I was speaking. It is a shallow life, right? There's no question. So once I was working as a public speaker, and I was doing the presentation I was doing at the time was called Travel Passport, and it was a very unique presentation in that. Oh no, Herman Hill, Kentucky. I am sorry to hear that. Hopefully everybody was all right. It was a unique presentation in that I had product in my hand, which we usually didn't have, and I would present what the product was, and I'd say, I'll sell these to you for $50, but I've only got 40 of them, right? Or 30 of them or whatever. And everybody would run to the front of the room and they'd hand you this money. And I would just take that money and put it in my pocket. And it was part of the deal. You could actually keep that. So I was putting tons of money away. And I said to my boss, I said, 3 shows in a row, there's been this beautiful blonde girl that's been sitting in the first 2 or 3 rows. I said, and everybody watches you when you're a public speaker. This girl was watching me differently. And I said, it's so weird because people don't come to more than one show. We're not entertainers. And I said, would you be really angry, if I asked this girl to dinner if she comes to one more show? And he's like, nah, knock yourself out. Do whatever. I don't care. So the following show, she's there again. It was like the 5th show in a row or something at that point. So when the show was over, I ran down and I introduced myself. And I said, she said, how much longer are you going to be in town? And I told her, and I said, how about we go to dinner tonight? She said, oh, that sounds great. So I take her to this really nice restaurant, and she starts talking, and she says, boy, how long have you been doing this? And I tell her, and she said, it seems to me like you, boy, how many, just the cash. She said, do you make any money other than that? I'm like, oh, no, they pay us really well, and I'm sort of bragging, you know what I mean? I'm a kid in my late 20s, early 30s, and, oh, no, huge money, blah, blah, blah. A person was run off the road and hit a guardrail. No major injuries. Well, thank God for that. At least the run got me off the couch crying and I stopped crying for a while. I was expecting a text from you, Herman Hill. How about texting me when this show is over? Please, if you could do that. So I'm basically bragging about how much money I make. And, we were a bottle of wine into the evening, and the dinner was probably going to cost me $1,000, right? But she was a beautiful woman. And I keep talking and keep talking. And then at one point, she reaches into her inside pocket, right? And she pulls out a wallet and she drops it open. And there's an IRS, investigation badge. And she said, basically she had been taking notes on how many people were buying on the front of the stage and doing all of that. And I got hit with... well, please text me anyway, Hermit Hill. I need to talk to you. And instantly she hits me, and the amount I owed at the time was $440,000 in back taxes. And the following day, I went down and I was talking to one other public speaker, because there was 3 of us. We would actually do 3 presentations at one show. I spoke first whole, which was kind of the nice position at the time. She was piping hot. She looked like a supermodel, but she just happened to be an agent for the Internal Revenue Service. And that's probably why she's an agent for the Internal Revenue Service, because you wouldn't have that conversation with somebody that wasn't beautiful. You know what I mean? But it was, okay, ZW. Yeah. So I go down and I tell these guys, I go, man, you're not going to believe what happened. And one of them goes, she worked for the IRS. I'm like, you knew this was going to happen? And he goes, that happened to me a few years back. I'm like, well, did I finish my date? I didn't even pay for the meal. I went, I'll tell you what. She goes, I think we've got you to probably about $440,000 delinquent in money that you haven't paid. And I go, 440 grand? Well, then you should have no problem covering this check. And I got up and walked out. That's what happened. Yeah, well, I didn't pay for it, so that's the only shining spot is that I didn't pay for it. And then I called a really good attorney, and this is just the nature of our country, I guess. I called a really good attorney, and the attorney said to me, write me a check for $4,000 and write another check to the Internal Revenue Service for $44,000. And I said, and then what, a payment plan? No, the attorney settled for 10 cents on the dollar. But I learned a valuable lesson, which I would love to tell you, is that you should do everything right and pay your taxes, but that took a lot more years. Monk, good morning to you too. I will be sending you an email here shortly, Monk. You have good taste, by the way. And Mr. Wolf, I think your watch will arrive today. Mr. Hunt, yours should arrive tomorrow. Alrighty, peeps. I am Captain Tommy Scoville. Uh-oh. Graceface says, Mr. Hunt, yep. Even fell for a bass player. Married a Seattle bass player who loved wine. I learned a valuable lesson. Yeah, don't fall in love with a cowboy or a rock star. And if they're a public speaker, you can fall in love with them, but you're only going to see them about 5 days a year. It might be the best marriage ever. My first wife, I didn't, for a long time, we didn't spend a whole lot of time together, which is probably the only reason that we lasted as long as we did, because we were never together. And yeah. All right, peeps, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville from the Lifeboat, where we're live on the 5s, 7 days a week, more or less. This week more. By the way, I'll be going live again at some point, just because it's become a tradition and there's a crap load of snow in my driveway. It's and I'm ready to go see ZW. I want a home in Arizona. That's my next place, man. I will officially announce that. That's where I'm moving. I'm going to move to Arizona because I am tired of the cold and the snow. I have an antique watch I'd love to talk to you about, Tommy. What's the best email to catch you at that? Bert, send me an email to sober@myyahoo.com. SOBER at myyahoo.com. Not Yahoo. Sober@myyahoo.com. Got it? And if old watches and restorations on old watches is really kind of my specialty. So, and boy, if you're a member of the Lifeboat, you're never going to get a better deal on a restoration, I assure you. Reach out to me, I'll tell you about it. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you this evening on the deck of the Lifeboat. And I want to say thanks to everybody for all that you do, because there really is, this is one of those things that is a labor of love, right? I'm never going to make $1 doing this. This is a labor of love. And helping people is fantastic. But the interaction that I have with you people and the emails and everything else, that's the paycheck. And there's been a lot of new people that have sent a lot of emails that have really been honest and open and just sort of sharing their life and what's going on. And that really is the paycheck, you know? Good Lord, I did a full hour. I'm going to short you later or something. We'll see you on the deck of the boat. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to turn on the music. I don't know. I pulled that page down. But riding on the lifeboat, riding on the lifeboat, riding on the lifeboat, life, life, life.